Portland, bundle up, we're going agate hunting, and Newport is home to some of the best agate hunting on the Oregon coast. They even have a super rare and sought-after variety named after them, the Newport Blue. And if you're like me and mistake every shiny rock or piece of glass for agate, don't worry, there's usually 1 to 10 unofficial experts on the aptly named Agate Beach ready to tell you what to look out for. Afterwards, you can warm up with a hot meal at local Ocean Seafoods or a South Beach Fish Market or Clearwater restaurant, all while overlooking sea lions. There is truly something for everyone in Newport. Plan your trip today at discovernewport.com/citycast. That's discovernewport.com/citycast.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're looking into the wild drama surrounding the only Oregonian in President Trump's cabinet, the legal fights and political fallout over the gas tax bill, and a neighborhood clinic that's closing after being bought by a healthcare megacorporation. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Willamette Week City Hall reporter Sophie Peel and our very own newsletter editor, Rachel Monahan. It's Friday, March 6th. I'm executive producer John Notarianni in for Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Hello and welcome everyone to the Friday News Roundup. Sophie, Rachel, thanks for being here. How you doing?
Hi, John.
Hey.
Rachel, I think a lot of people who read our newsletter know you, but it's been a very long time since you've been on the podcast. How are you feeling about it? I know you are just so excited to be on the show.
I am looking forward to it.
I find some trepidation and insincerity in that.
Well, I am really excited about the topic I got to choose to chat about.
It is the classic non-issue political issue here in Portland. I'm excited to talk about it too. Today is the day that we break down some of the biggest stories of the week with some of the best and brightest journalists in town. But before we jump into the news, I want to turn your attention to something that CityCast has just launched. We put out a new show in your feed for the last couple weeks. It's called Your City Could Be Better. You might not know, but CityCast actually is in 13 cities around the country. And each week we're putting out a conversation with a host from one of the cities, talking about something weird that their city is trying or where they're growing or what they're doing to succeed. This week, we're talking with our friends from Salt Lake about a national think tank that wants to institutionalize unhoused people, even if locals aren't into this idea. We've also talked in the past on the show about data centers, anti-ICE protests, creative plans to revitalize downtowns. It's just like a really cool window into everything that is going on across the country. This is the basis of my opening question to the both of you. In the spirit of this show, what is like one thing that you think Portland could learn from other cities? Either another place you've lived or somewhere you visited. Like, what lesson should Portland take?
Well, I lived in New York City for 17 years, and I never lived in a house. I always lived in apartments, as one might guess, in New York City. But I never lived on a main road. I chose to live on quieter streets. So I think that a lot of the development that's happened in Portland for apartments has been right on the highway even sometimes, but definitely on main drags. And I think Portland could find ways to build smaller apartments on side streets. And I know that's happening to some extent, but we could do that more.
Yeah, it does seem like most of the new apartments that are going up are basically along major corridors, just sort of framing the street on either side and sort of like dumping them back in the neighborhoods. That makes a lot of sense.
Who wants to hear traffic, when you're in your apartment?
Totally. What about you, Sophie?
I've spent a lot of time in Atlanta, and I think they have the Beltline, which is like this miles long, walkway and bikeway and runway. And, I know that's more of like a structural thing that Portland might not have, but there's like such a distinct like culture along the Beltline that is just like active, and people are chatting and grabbing coffees from local coffee shops. And like, it is just such a like place, and everyone knows about it and everyone goes to it. And it just makes you feel like hopeful, I guess. And I don't know if that's possible in Portland. And I'm sure we have like maybe little versions of that, but we don't have just like one long contiguous walkway where just like it feels like everyone from the city comes to do something.
I absolutely want that too. Both of you have very logical, sort of development-minded ideas. And I have one more to add. So this comes from when I was visiting La Crosse, Wisconsin, at one point when I was driving across the country, sort of on the western edge of Wisconsin, this little college town. And the bar there had signs up that they were hosting a meat raffle, which is maybe once a month, they buy a bunch of meat of like steaks and hot dogs and like cheap hamburger and host a raffle for the meat to benefit local organizations. So you buy a bunch of raffle tickets and like maybe you'll get a really nice steak. Maybe you'll get some like bacon or like a pack of hot dogs. But I think that meat raffles is something that Portland needs more of. I think I've voiced this opinion on the show before, but that is my tip that I want to bring to Portland.
Maybe we could expand it to not just meat, but more raffles.
There can be vegetable raffles. Yeah, we can have kale raffles. We can have brassica raffles. Yeah, there's lots of options there.
Oh, I thought that was sort of brand John to want more meat in Portland.
Are you a meat guy?
I think I've sort of somehow ended up being like the default meat
There's
guy.
There's always
on the
a
show.
meat guy.
I'm just a meat guy. Yeah. Well, thank you for your answers. And Your City Could Be Better is in the CityCast Portland feed. It'll be showing up on Sunday. You can also check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, guys, let's get into it. I am focusing on some great reporting by Zane Sparling over at the Oregonian and also some coverage by Randy Staples in the Oregon Capital Chronicle, as well as writing. These are a handful of publications I don't get to cite very often on this show. The New York Times, the New York Post, and Politico. We've got this grab bag of sources because we are talking about U.S. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer. Oregon native, previously served as Happy Valley City Council member and mayor. She was also a one-term congresswoman representing Oregon's 5th District. Then she got tapped to lead the Labor Department for President Trump. The only Oregonian in the cabinet, and is now the focus of a rather wide-ranging ethics investigation by the department's inspector general. All of this sort of focuses on her use of the Labor Department's resources. She's facing scrutiny over heavy travel. They're saying that she's launched this nationwide tour to meet with workers and employers, but isn't really doing many official obligations, that there's large blocks of unscheduled time. Employees have said that she's rarely present at the department's headquarters, and they're alleging that, the travel has basically allowed for an extramarital affair with someone from her security team. She's also been accused of drinking on the job and throwing herself a birthday party using Labor Department money. So this was a fun situation. They said it was a swearing-in ceremony for her as the labor secretary, but people have said that they sang happy birthday to her at this party, that they saw her blowing out candles on a cake at this party. This was the swearing-in ceremony, and it took place around her birthday, but it was not a birthday party. It was just the swearing-in ceremony. Oh, the list goes on. There's been some accusations about her husband, who had been barred from the Labor Department's headquarters for making unwanted physical advances against 2 women inside the building. And perhaps, most damning, there are allegations that her top aides have been trying to steer grants towards favorite political operatives. An investigation is ongoing. The fallout is beginning. But I'm kind of wondering, before I get into it further, what's your guys' take on Chavez DeRemer? What did you think when she was raised to the national level like this? And what do you think about her now?
I didn't think this would happen. I mean, I don't know a lot about her behavior before she became Secretary of Labor, but I had never heard anything either publicized or not publicized about behavior like this. The drinking, the using public dollars for personal gain, anything about her husband. I think what strikes me about this is if all these allegations are true, she did everything wrong. Every way in which she could do something wrong as a politician, she did. It's not just using public dollars for, her swearing-in ceremony where she had a birthday cake and everyone sang her happy birthday. It's not just, her husband allegedly groped women. It's everything. It's one of everything that's being alleged. And yeah, I just didn't see it coming.
I would echo that. I was really surprised, did not have this Trump administration official on my bingo card for biggest scandal. I sort of, clearly mistakenly, had this idea of her as like a relatively moderate pick and thought, she won a swing district here in Oregon. And she seemed to really, her politics seemed to fit the district. Again, all of these are still allegations, but one thing that was really striking to me in the reporting that gave credence to the allegations, I believe in an early story, the New York Times reported that she had a ton of travel expenses paid out of her campaign when she was running for Congress, which seems to match, which I had never heard of as well. Like, she wasn't totally on my radar when I was reporting, but she did have competitive elections where she was in some ways vetted by just simply being in very competitive elections. So this is a big surprise on some level. But yes, the allegations are like really striking in that they cover a whole lot of realms of misadventure. And the staffers that were forced to resign this week, they come out of Oregon politics as well.
Yeah, I mean, to the point of like that there's just such a broad swath of accusations here. I think initially I'd been a little bit hesitant about bringing it to the show because I was like, well, is this it? Is this the moment? Is this when it's worth it? But like sort of seeing all of it come together in mass, I feel like this was sort of the moment where I felt like we need to talk about this, especially as you just mentioned, the staffers that are resigning, Rachel. That is sort of the latest shoe to fall. There has been this investigation ongoing, and we've seen a number of staffers leave this week. On Monday, we saw that Chavez DeRemer's chief of staff and deputy chief of staff were being forced out. They were given 24 hours to resign from their jobs. Then on Wednesday, we saw another person. Chavez DeRemer's director of advance, Melissa Roby, was placed on administrative leave. So this is continuing to evolve, and we're continuing to see more people sort of being shed from this department, from her staff. Oregon Capital Chronicle reported, okay, got to get into the betting markets. Polymarket has an angle going on who's going to be the first person to leave Trump's cabinet. As of mid-January, it was at 27% that Chavez DeRemer was going to be the first person forced out. I will say I checked this morning. She is now down to 7%. The leading candidate to leave the cabinet is Kristi Noem, which is a whole other sort of bag of malfeasance and apples there.
It's a day by day rotating cast of... part of me wonders if, we thought of Lori Chavez DeRemer as like somewhat of a moderate Republican, especially given kind of the national polarization. But, I always thought of her as like not necessarily uptight or buttoned up, but like I really just didn't see this happening. And I kind of wonder if like this is what happens to people who join the Trump orbit, if like they just become like worse. Trump thinks he has this immunity, and honestly, he kind of does have this immunity right now. And like I kind of wonder if when you're in that orbit, like you start to think that you have immunity to normal checks and balances. And because it's so unexpected that she's the one.
Yeah. I mean, potentially if you are surrounded by federal officials who have no problem with graft, who have no problem bending the rules, who have no problem sort of throwing out the normal rules of decorum.
Yeah, why not dabble?
Why not dabble? Why not have a birthday party? Yeah.
And speaking of, even the betting markets are like corrupted now by insider trading. So you might get some insider information now from looking at the betting markets on like who's placing big bets for somebody to leave. I mean, there are allegations that like an insider made a ton of money off of, disgustingly, the Iran war that's now going on. So like turn to the betting markets to know what's going on with the Trump administration, I guess.
Yeah, I was not expecting the betting markets to be a source that I was going to be looking at in researching stories, but welcome to 2026. This is where we are.
There is one allegation that seems to have been cleared up a little. Dr. John DeRemer, her husband, was cleared by police, at least, of the one report they got of sexual assault. So maybe there's less credence to that allegation. Police only had one report. There were multiple allegations during the internal investigation, but we'll wait and see.
We will wait and see. We will be following this. And who knows, by the time this airs, it's possible that more people could have resigned, because it seems like they're happening at a clip this week. All right, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, more news of the week.
Spring buying season is here. If your 2026 goal has been to finally buy something for yourself in Portland, you've got to be fully prepared. Local mortgage lender James Adair will set you up with the mortgage plan you need to buy the home you want. James's certified buyer pass can help you write tighter, more competitive offers to beat out cash buyers and negotiate the market with maximum leverage. Real estate is what you own, but your mortgage plan is how you own it. Let James show you how the right plan can create a massive financial lift. Visit pdxhomeloan.com to learn more. James Adair, NMLS 272766 with Better Mortgage Corporation, NMLS 330511, an equal housing lender.
Rachel, we're all awaiting your saga of the gas tax. What the heck is going on here?
What is happening right now is that Republicans have gone to court to challenge a law that Governor Kotek signed on Monday. The law moves the election date from November to May for a gas tax referendum. To take a step back for a second, Democrats had to go into a special session to pass a major transportation bill that, among other things, increased the gas tax by 6 cents. That was a really big struggle for them to pass it, if you recall, in the fall. Governor Kotek even signed the law at the very last minute because she knew it was going to be challenged. And the gas tax seems to be so unpopular that some Republican leaders had no trouble gathering an excess of signatures for that. So the fight then turned with some complications to when the gas tax repeal would happen. Interestingly, there is no fight whatsoever on what is the likely outcome of this election, which is a thumbs down on raising the gas tax.
Yeah, which should be the main point of all of this, but... Yeah.
Yes, but the most fierce fight this legislative session was over when the gas tax vote would happen. You know, everyone agrees, as I said, that, voters are likely to give it a thumbs down. And what's really interesting to me about this is we live in a state that is run by Democrats. They're in the majority. Their majority has grown in the legislature such that they have enough votes now without any Republicans to pass taxes. But this was a spectacularly unpopular move to increase the tax. And there are some other fees and taxes that are part of this, but the gas tax is the headline. And what's interesting is that Republicans who are, almost permanently in the minority here found a way to challenge the legislation that Democrats passed.
They did it again.
They did it again? How's that? What do you mean by that?
I mean, let's look at what has happened in the legislature over the last several years, right? We had this situation a couple years back where Republicans were hosting walkouts to continually shut down the democratic process at the Oregon legislature. New laws were passed to try and ban the walkouts. They were still doing walkouts. And now they found this other way of taking something that is passed and then sort of end running it with a voter referendum to shut it down too.
Yes, it is interesting. And now the action on this is in the courts. The lawsuit will hinge on whether it's unconstitutional for the Democrats to have moved the date when voters signed on to a referendum that was going to be in November. And also there's another more technical issue of whether Democrats are giving people enough time to get statements in the voter pamphlet. That deadline is coming up very soon. And if you gather 500 signatures, you don't have to pay the fee to put a statement in the voter pamphlet, which that's a pretty influential part of our elections, particularly because we vote by mail.
I'm curious what the point of moving the referendum to May is. Is it just so because the Democrats know what's going to happen, it's going to get voted down, and they just want to have like an additional 6 months to figure out what's next faster.
Oh, right. I didn't get to that key point.
If only. Sophie.
Yeah. I mean,
if only that were the case.
The sort of high-minded policy arguments that both sides have put out is, yes, the Democrats are saying we need clarity, except that they kind of know what's happening. Mm-hmm. Though, I guess to give that argument credit, people are leaving the Oregon Department of Transportation while there is some uncertainty about funding to pay for their own jobs. So maybe there is a little bit there. And Republicans are raising the issue of this is the will of the voters who signed on to this referendum. But everybody knows that what's at stake is politics. It's a super unpopular thing that the Democrats have done. And Republicans want to remind voters of that in the fall, where the election has higher stakes. The governor is up for re-election. A bunch of these legislatures are up for re-election. And Democrats don't want voters to be reminded of that in November. I'm not sure how much that will affect how voters vote on, say, Kotek's re-election, but Democrats are concerned enough about it. And bless him, State Senator Jeff Golden from Ashland said the quiet part out loud during one of these debates. Let me read his quote. "Both parties want the election date they want for partisan political reasons. Everyone in the chamber knows it."
Yeah. I mean, it would create a pretty easy cudgel for Republicans in the fall election to be like, look at this, look at this, look at the gas tax. The gas tax is bad.
And Kotek supported it. And I do want to say that, I'm kind of amused that the big fight turned out to be over a date, because the policy impacts are so removed from this, because everybody is agreeing that the gas tax increase isn't going to stay. And it's anyone's guess over the next 2 days what could happen in the legislature. But it appears that there has been a deal in place to deal with the Oregon Department of Transportation's budget shortfall, which is on the order.
I mean, but looking into that deal too, it's sure, they have some plans in place to deal with this budget gap. I spent some time looking into it. Part of it is just not filling vacant jobs. Great. But they're also going to be cutting money from a bunch of really important safety programs. And I think that's the part that's not getting enough discussion here. Safe routes to school, bridge and seismic and safety preservation projects, some bike and pedestrian programs. All that money is being diverted away to cover this gap while we're still sort of squabbling over a date to repeal the law. It's infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, there are real consequences to what the lawmakers seem to have agreed to that you are mentioning there, but there isn't a fight on some level. It's strange that the fight with higher consequences gets less airtime, there's less friction around it, there's less disagreement. And, transportation funding is going to be coming back around.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all your coverage on this, Rachel, and for keeping us abreast. And oh boy, I can't wait for the next chapter here. All right, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, more news of the week.
Hi, I'm David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, a podcast network that includes this show you're listening to, and also 12 other CityCasts in 12 other cities. And each one knows their city as well as your local team knows yours. So isn't it time we connected them? Don't you want to know how they're tackling their bike lane problems and housing challenges and sidewalk dog poop crises? That's why I'm hosting a new podcast called Your City Could Be Better. Because it could be. Every week, I'll chat with a different host in our CityCast network about what their cities are doing right and wrong, the weird things they're trying, and the surprising successes, so that we can all learn how to make our cities a little bit better. Listen to Your City Could Be Better on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Sophie, what have you brought us to discuss today?
Yeah, today I'm talking about a story written by Andrew Schwartz, my colleague at Willamette Week. It's about a primary care clinic in Northeast Portland called Family Medical Group that kind of unexpectedly announced that it would be closing for good in late February. You know, it had been hemorrhaging doctors kind of in recent months. It was really a beloved clinic for the local community. And at one point earlier this year, there were just 2 doctors left. But what led up to this closure is what's really interesting and sort of at the heart of this story. So in 2021, a big company called Optum, which in recent years has reported revenues of $270 billion and is a subsidiary of United Health Group, which, as many people know, is one of America's most profitable insurance companies. They purchased the clinic. And so by this point, Optum had actually purchased a number of, smaller healthcare clinics across Oregon and, over the years had merged some of them together, oftentimes really to the detriment of local communities, despite what they said would be, helping local communities. And this pattern kind of emerged where doctors would start leaving in droves, and eventually Optum would close some of those clinics. The same exact thing happened to Family Medical Group. And so, I think the big question is, why is Optum buying up all of these local practices and what is the state doing about it, and can they really do anything about it? Optum's structure is I think, at the heart of this story. So United Healthcare, which is kind of the other major arm of Optum's parent company, United Health Group, it's a really dominant player in the Medicare Advantage insurance market. And, one Brown University researcher that Andrew spoke to, Aaron Fuse Brown, said that sort of an incentive emerged for insurers to buy up practices with Medicare Advantage patients and to kind of take control of their charts and make additional diagnoses so they could bill more. And so we're sort of seeing this vertical integration of healthcare where insurance companies and their subsidiaries are actually buying up smaller medical clinics so they can have control over patients' charts. And it just helps with their control of what they can charge and how that reimbursement works. So the legislature has, noted this new wave of acquisitions and has tried to control for it in certain ways. So in 2025, the state legislature passed a bill that was really supposed to provide some checks on corporate control of medical practices. So it sought to close some loopholes that allowed these kind of for-profit large healthcare conglomerates to manage patient care decisions directly rather than having a more local clinic that could actually direct patient care and look at their diagnoses. It's sort of unclear how Optum has complied with that new state law, or if they really are in compliance. One quote I thought that was really interesting in this story that I think really sums up what Optum's kind of motives might be is from Bailey Langley, who's a director for State Representative Ben Bauman, who sponsored the 2025 bill. And Bailey Langley told WW that often these large conglomerates will buy local clinics not because each site is uniquely valuable, but because owning them can help the company rapidly expand market share and gain control over patient flow. So he said about that, the core incentive is profit. By acquiring primary care clinics, Optum can steer patients into insurance products owned by the same parent company, direct referrals to in-network specialists and services it also controls. Once the company has absorbed the clinic's patient base, contracts, and data, the physical site itself becomes less important. That's why a clinic may be purchased, consolidated with another acquisition, and then shut down within a few years. So basically, what he's saying is that, Optum doesn't really care about the patients themselves or the care or the local community. They just want to sort of capture those patients so they have them in their system. They kind of see them as dollar signs, I think, is what this representative is trying to suggest.
This is the most evil thing I think I've ever heard. I mean, this is like actual mad genius level plotting. Like, oh, let's take healthcare and find the way to extract the most possible profit out of it without actually taking care of patients and shutting down the clinics that they've been relying on for like decades. I mean, that's the other thing that came through in your colleague Andrew Schwartz reporting is that this isn't just like a pop-up clinic that had been there for a little while. This had been around for a long time, was like people in the community had like built their lives around this place. And then for it to sort of just like go up in a puff of smoke because it like didn't work out on some mega corporation's balance sheet, just, it's awful.
That piece of it is confusing to me, how the for-profit company is making money off of closing down clinics, or essentially the end result is closing down clinics. Like, it reminds me of like what happened to Toys R Us or like other places where capitalists have come in bought up a company and essentially bankrupted it. But I don't quite yet understand, like, what's in it in getting these clinics to close, or is it just like a side effect of making some profit for a little while?
That's a good question. I don't totally understand it, but I think there's a couple pieces to it. One, like the physical site becomes less important because once they have these patients in their network, essentially, or once they have these patients in their world, like even when that patient finds like a new clinic, they're still going to be working through Optum, I think. And so basically they've captured that person. And so wherever they go, they follow them. I think.
Yeah. That person's in the network. They are now an Optum customer.
Right.
So like it doesn't matter if they're going to the clinic that they've been relying on down the street for them or get shipped out to somewhere on the other side of the city.
For insurance, you're talking about there, like and it just seems striking to me, again, like I guess the insurance company makes money essentially if people don't get medical care because they don't have to pay for anything. I mean, yeah, yikes.
It's very disheartening.
Yeah.
Sophie, thank you for breaking this down for us. This absolute bummer of a story. And thank you to your colleagues at, what did you say? WW?
Did I say WW?
You gave some acronym that like some way of shorthanding it that I never heard before.
That's weird. I've like never, I don't think I ever call it WW.
We did get dinged recently for calling it Willamette Weekly in a flow of spiel on the show.
Apparently, we take great offense to when people call us Willamette Weekly. I've never really understood that.
I've heard it's called the Willamette Week.
Oh, yeah. I think that slipped through, too. So.
Oh.
I'm just
Sophie,
kidding.
your publication,
I don't even know what it's called.
I'm just kidding.
Willamette Week, has done a wonderful job on this story. Thank you. All right, guys, before we head out, we have some shout outs from members of our Portland Neighbors program. This is one of the perks of being a paying member of CityCast Portland. You get the opportunity to shout out a local business or organization that you love. Rachel, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I love these shout outs. I run them in the newsletter too. I just find these interesting. Just another lens on Portland. And we have one from Kelly R., who is shouting out Christian Vargas at Juntos PDX. They're a local group that brings together and builds connections in the Latino Hispanic community. She particularly praises Vargas for organizing, uplifting, and amplifying the creative expression of the Portland Latino Hispanic community.
Nice. I've got one from Misty D, who wants to do a double shout out for Larkspur, Portland, and Wokeface PDX in Foster Powell. You can order your Wokeface goodies online for local pickup at Larkspur. When you go in, you can shop for plants, fun items, and art, all made by locals. It's a lovely and cozy community spot with wonderful owners.
And we have one from Doug T, who's shouting out Lake Theater and Cafe. Doug says they have great food, ambiance, film selection, even before they became world famous. And for context, they trolled Amazon when the Melania Trump...
They were the Melania Theater?
Yes,
nice.
I believe so. So
awesome.
That's the world famous part there.
Well, shout out to Kelly, Misty, Doug. A huge thanks to our newest member, Phil R. When you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd also be very happy to read your shout outs of places you love in Portland on the show, alongside a bunch of other perks like ad-free listening. You can join at membership.citycast.fm. And before we break, guys, I wanted to apologize for a goof that we made on the show on Wednesday when we were discussing some really great reporting by the Portland Mercury about Portland City Administrator Raymond Lee, who told staff at a town hall late last month that the city is committed to keeping the local ICE facility operational. We were super excited to discuss this story, and we goofed and said that Portland Mercury reporter and friend of the show, Jeremiah Hayden, worked for the Oregonian. Sorry, Jeremiah. We know you work at the Mercury. We just slipped up, and it won't happen again. In fairness, I just want to say, Sophie, thank you for all of your great reporting with Oregon Public Broadcasting. It is...
I'm technically an OPB reporter now because I went on Think Out Loud once.
You are now between OPB
mug,
and us.
so.
Listeners, Sophie is trolling us by sipping out of an OPB mug during this conversation. So thanks, Sophie. Really loud. Thanks, you guys, for breaking down the news with me this week. Thanks for all your stories, and hope you and everyone listening has a great weekend.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
After taping today's episode, we got news that President Trump had indeed fired Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. This is why you just should not bet on geopolitical events. Well, that's all for us this week here on CityCast Portland, but thank you so much for tuning in. Our production team this week was Julia Fiaioni, Rachel Monahan, Claudia Meza, Jason Patton, Katie McMurrin, Jesse Wiza, and myself. I'm executive producer John Notarianni. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drisos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound, alongside Opal 99 and D-May, courtesy of Triple Scoop Music. We'll be back on Monday with a whole lot more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.